Hey, this is Toby. Today I will show you how to code a very simple RSI EA in mql5 so you can get results like this one here for yourself. And in the end of the video, we will also do a quick backtest. Okay, let's go. But before we start coding, let me just explain what we are trying to achieve with this EA. So here we have a euro-dollar chart, and down here we have a simple RSI indicator. We want to buy whenever the RSI enters the oversold region down here, and we want to sell whenever the RSI enters this upper region right here. So for example, we would have a sell trade right here and also right here. And we would have a buy signal right here. And also here. So you can see this indicator works pretty well in ranging markets. And we will also add a stop loss and take profit to test different targets. And we will also add the option to exit the trades on a reversed signal. Okay, so let's jump to MetaEditor and we start coding. So here we are in the MetaEditor. Let's just create a new expert advisor file. So I will create this under my YouTube folder here. New file, expert advisor template. And let's name it RSI EA. And click next, next, finish. Okay, so this will be our EA. First of all, I like to clean up a little bit. So we have already the onInit function, the onDinit function here, and also the onTick function by default. Okay. So we want to start with the inputs maybe. So we will just create another comment section here under the properties. And we just call them inputs. And now let's think about what inputs we want for our EA. So the first input most of the time is the magic number. So static input of type long, input magic number, and let's just predefine this input with a random number like this. And we also add a comment here, magic number. Now the next input will also be a static input of type double for the lot size. So let's just name it input lot size. And we predefine this with 0.01. Also write a comment. Lot size. The next input will be for the period of the RSI. So input, and this time we don't write static because we want to be able to change this in a optimization, for example. So input of type integer. The name will be input RSI period, and we predefine this, I don't know, with a default value of maybe 21, and also write a comment RSI period. So the RSI indicator also needs a level. So this will be the next input, also an integer. So the level is always between 0 and 100. So if we take a look here at the indicator, we see this upper level here, which is 70, and 30 down here. So this is a integer between 0 and 100. And we only want to specify one level, and we will calculate the other one. So we don't need to enter like 80 and 20. We just want to enter 80, and then the other one will be the same distance, just on the other side. So RSI level, predefine this, I don't know, with 70. So this will be the upper level we specify here, and we will calculate the lower level from this value. So RSI level maybe right upper. So the next input, the RSI only needs these two inputs, but we also want to add a stop loss and take profit to our EA. So a input of type int, because the stop loss and take profit will be in points. So stop loss, default value maybe 200 points. Stop loss in points, and we also want the option to deactivate this stop loss, so we don't have a stop loss. So 0 would mean off basically. And then of course also a take profit, also in points. And we predefine this with, I don't know, 100. So take profit in points, and also here 0 means off. Okay, and now we also want a switch basically, so we can activate that we want to close the positions at a reversed signal. So if we are in a buy position and we get a signal to open a sell trade, we want to get out of the buy position and open the sell trade. So this will be an input of type Boolean, just true or false, and let's call it input plus signal. Yeah, and we set this maybe to false at default. Okay, so close trades by signal. Yes, so these are the inputs we need for our EA. Let's compile, and then we can continue with the next step. Okay, let me just correct a few mistakes here, points, and also by opposite signal, of course. Okay, so the next section we want to code is for the global variables. So we will just add this comment section here, create a new one, call this global variables. And the first global variable we need is a handle for our RSI indicator. So we can just write int handle here. Then of course we need a buffer for this RSI, for the RSI values. So double buffer, this is a dynamic array basically. And then we also want a MQL tick type variable called current tick. And we also want a trade object, so we can open and close positions very easily. So C trade. And we also want two datetime variables to only open one trade per bar. So datetime open time buy, we predefine this with 0, and datetime open time sell, also 0. Okay, so in order to use this cTrade variable here, we also need to include the cTrade class. So that's the next step we want to do. So let's compile. Yeah, because the compiler does not know this class yet. So let's copy this comment section here and paste it up here. Let's call it include. And here we just write hashtag include and then directory to the cTrade class. So this will be trade \trade.mqh like this. And now if you compile, we see we have no errors, no warnings, and the compiler knows the cTrade class. Okay, and a quick tip. So whenever I say compile, you should also compile your code, because if you just do it once in the end of the video, you can end up with a lot of errors, and it's much harder to fix the code. So whenever you have a section coded and it makes sense to compile, you should compile and make sure that you have no errors before you continue on coding. Okay, so next we want to take a look at the onInit function. Now we have the user inputs here, and the first step we want to do in the onInit before we start the EA is to check the user input. because just by mistake, or because the user does not know what the correct input is for a variable here, we should always check if the input is correct and makes sense. So we will start in down init by just writing a comment here, check user inputs, and we will just write a if statement for each input variable. So the first one is the magic number. So if the magic number, for example, is below or equal to 0, then yeah, we would want to print a error message for the user. So let me scroll up. So we just want to print, for example, and we use the alert function for this. We want to say like magic number below or equal to 0. And then the user just knows, okay, I've made a wrong input here for the magic number. And we also want to return init parameters incorrect. So the EA does not start if we have a wrong input. And that's what we do for all the other inputs too. So the lot size, the next one. Input lot size. So the lot size should not be below or equal to 0, of course. And maybe we also want to say if the lot size is greater than 10, then we also want to print a error message. Of course, you can adjust this number here or don't put it in at all. But I just want to make sure that if the user enters like 100 lot, for example, by accident, that the EA does not start. Okay, so lot size below or equal to 0 or greater than 10. Okay, so the next input is for the period. Then we have the level. So input RSI period. This period should be greater than 2. So if it's less or equal to 1, this would be a wrong input. And yeah, I think that's all for the period. So RSI period below or equal 1. Next one is the level. So RSI level. Yeah, this should be, of course, below 100. So if it's greater or equal to 100. And also maybe if the RSI level is below 50 or equal to 50. Because this is the level for the upper zone, basically. And of course, this should not be below or equal to 50. So we can just write this alert function here. RSI level greater equal 100 or below or equal 50. Okay, next one is stop loss, take profit, and close signal. So our input stop loss can be 0, of course. This means we have no stop loss, but it should not be below 0. So we only have this one condition here. Stop loss below 0. And then also for the take profit, the same. Input take profit. If the take profit is below 0, we want to print this message, take profit below 0. And the last one is for the close signal. Do we really need to check? I mean, this input only can be true or false, so we don't need to check anything for the close signal. So that's it for the user input check. We can compile. We don't have any errors, so that's very nice. Okay, so next, what we also want to code here in the onInit function after we check for the user input is to set the magic number to our trade object. So we can later filter the open positions by our magic number. So we write a comment here, set magic number to trade object, and we just use our trade object, trade dot set expert magic number, and we use our input magic number here. Okay, now also we want to create the RSI handle here in the onInit function. So we can write another comment, create RSI handle, and we just call the default function. So handle equals RSI or RS like this. And now we need to specify the symbol. So this, of course, is our current symbol the EA is running on, and the period, also the current period. Now the MA period, this is just our input RSI period here, and then applied price or handle. We just want to use the close prices, so you can write price, I think price close, and that's it for the RSI handle here. And what we need to do is to check if this call or this creation of the handle was successful. So we can just write a if statement and check if the handle is equal to a invalid handle. Then we want to print out an error message for the user, and we don't want to start the EA. So we can again use the alert function for this. And we just write failed to create indicator handle, for example, and we want to return. This time maybe just init failed, like this. So the last thing we want to code here in the onInit is just to set our buffer as series. This just makes it a lot easier to work with the values in the array. So we can write a comment here, set buffer as series, and we just call this function array set as series, and we will input our buffer, and then we set it to true. Okay, so let's compile. So this is it for the onInit function. We check our inputs. Whenever we have a wrong input, we just return. The EA does not start. After that, we set the magic number to our trade object. We create the handle for our indicator, RSI. And we check also if this was successful. Otherwise, we also return false or failed here. And then we also set the series to our buffer as series. Okay, that's it for the init function. And now the next step is to take a look at the onTick function. Okay, that was a lie. First of all, we want to go here in the onDinit function. Here we just need to code one line. We need to release the indicator. So we write a comment, release indicator handle, and we can just write a simple if statement. If our handle is not an invalid handle, then we want to call the indicator release function here with our handle. Just like this. Let's compile. Okay. And now we can take a look at the onTick function. So let's take a look at the onTick function. So we go down here. The first thing we want to do here in the onTick function is to get the current tick. At least that's how I like to code my EAs. So I have just a simple variable here, the current tick variable, to have access to the ask and bid price of the current tick. So you can write a comment here, get current tick, and we can use the symbol info tick function. We need to specify the symbol, of course, for the current symbol. And now we need to input a variable of mql tick type. So we already have this, our global variable here, current tick. And if this call here fails, then we want to print a message maybe for the user. Failed to get current tick. And we also want to return here for this function, so we don't open or close any trades. Okay, next we want to get the indicator values of our RSI indicator. So we write a comment, get RSI values. And for this, we declare a variable called values. And we set this values, whatever we get from the copy buffer function. And here we use our handle. The buffer number, RSI indicator has only one buffer, so index 0. Start position is also 0. And for the number of values we want to get, we need 2 values in order to detect a crossover of the oversold line, for example. So 2 and our array. So this will be our buffer, and this function will store the 2 values inside our buffer. Okay, and now we can also check if this call was successful. So we want to get 2 values. So this function here returns the number of values it has copied to the buffer. So we can just check now our values variable here. If this is not equal to 2, then this call here failed, and we just want to print a message and return. So we just print failed to get indicator values. And we also want to return in this case. Okay, so let's compile. So maybe we also want to comment out the values we get here from this call just to check if they are correct. So we can just use a comment function here. And we want to comment out the buffer 0 value, which is the current value. So buffer 0, and in a next line, so just \n for a new line, buffer 1 value. This is the previous value of our RSI. So buffer 1. And now we can compile and check if we get the correct values. So we switch to the MetaTrader platform here. We open up the tester. We select our RSI EA here. And we just make sure that we are in the visual mode. And let's just start this test. Let's stop here, and we can see the values up here in the top left corner. And also if we hover here with the crosshair over the latest bar, we can see in the data window here the value of the RSI. So the current value is 51.67, which is the same value we get here for our buffer 0, 51.66, and that's of course rounded, so that's correct. And the previous value here is 48.65 in the data window, and we see the same value here, 48.65 for the buffer 1 value. So we have the correct value for the current RSI and also the previous candle. So now we can check, of course, for a crossover of the oversold line and the upper line of the RSI indicator. Okay, so we can close this test window here and can go back to the meta editor. So before we start to code the actual conditions to enter a trade, we want to code a few custom functions just to count the open positions, for example, and a close position function. So we will copy this section here and go after the onTick function, create another comment section, and we can just call it, I don't know, custom functions here. Just like this. Okay, and oh, by the way, if you are watching this video and this content is helpful for you, would be nice if you just leave a like. And if you dislike the video, I don't know why you're watching this anyways, but make sure to leave a comment so I can improve in the future. Okay, so back to business. So the first function we want to code is a count open position function. So we just know how many positions we have open at the current time. So we just write a comment here, count open positions, and the return type is a Boolean, and the name, of course, is count open positions. And now we will pass two variables here by reference. So the first one will be of type integer, count for the buy positions, and the second one also an integer by reference, count for the sell positions. So we just get basically the value back from the function. That's why we pass it by reference here with this and sign. Now we open up the body, close the body again here. In the end, of course, we want to return true. And now we should be able to compile with no warnings or errors. Okay, so the first step here inside this function is to set these variables here to 0, just to make sure. And yeah, also the count cell 0. And now we need another variable here where we store the total amount of open positions at the current time. So we just call this total, and we use the positions total function here. And now what we want to do is to loop through all open positions, and if the positions belongs to our magic number, our EA, we want to increase here our counter variables. So we just write a for loop. We start at total -1 because we want to make sure that we loop down. That's very important if you work with positions in MetaTrader or mql5. And then, of course, we want to loop through the open positions as long as our counter here is greater or equal to 0, because 0 is the last position. So we want to make sure we also get the last position with the index 0 here. Okay, and also, of course, we want to decrease our counter here every time, for every step. Okay, so this is our for loop. We can compile again. And now, inside this for loop, we want to get the ticket of the position of the current index here. So we can just use or declare another variable here called ticket. And we can set this to position get ticket here, and here we specify the index. So this will be our counter variable here. And now, of course, we also want to check the result. So if the ticket is below or equal to 0, we want to print out a message for the user. So failed to get position ticket. And we also want to return false for the whole function here. Okay, next we want to select the position, so we get fresh position data basically. So we can just use the if position select by ticket function here. We enter our ticket, and if this call here fails, we also want to return false. So we also can write a message for the user, failed to select position maybe, and we also return false. Okay, now we have a position selected, and now we can check the magic number of the position if the position belongs to our EA basically. So for this, we specify another variable here called magic. And now we can get the magic number of the position by calling the position get integer function here. We want to get the position magic, and we want to store the result, the magic number, in our magic variable here. Okay, if this call here fails, we also want to return false. So failed to get position magic number, and we return false. Okay, so now that we have the magic number of the position, we can just make a quick check if this current position belongs to our EA. So the magic number, if the magic number is equal to our input magic number, we know the position we have selected right now belongs to our EA, and we can increase the counter. Count buy or count sell, of course, depending on the direction of the position. So first we open up this if statement here, and now we need to get the direction so that we know if we need to increase the count buy variable here or the count sell variable. So again, we declare a variable called type, and now we get the type of the position. And again, we use the position get integer function here, and now position type, and we store the result in our type variable here. We also want to return if this fails. Failed to get position type, return false. Okay, now we have the type, and now we can just write a simple if statement here. The type is equal to position type buy. In this case, we know it's a buy position. We want to increase our counter buy by 1. The same for if the type is a position type sell, then we want to increase the counter for the sell positions here by 1. Okay. Yeah, I think this should give us the number of open positions for the buy positions and for the sell positions. And we can use this function later to check if we can open another trade, only if we have no position open, for example. So let's compile. Yeah, everything is fine. This is the count open position function. Okay, so next we only need 2 more custom functions here. The next one will be to normalize the price according to our symbol tick size. So we can write a comment down here, normalize price. And this function will also be of type Boolean and called normalize price. This time we have only one parameter for the function, also by reference. This will be the price. We enter here as an input, and then we modify the price here inside this function. Okay, we also want to return true here in the end. And now, first of all, we want to declare a variable here, the tick size, and set it to 0. And then we want to get the tick size of our current symbol. So we can use the symbol info double for this. Of course, for our current symbol. And now symbol, I think it's trade tick size here. And we want to store the result in our tick size variable. Okay, if this call here fails, we also want to print a message for the user. Failed to get tick size, and we want to return false. Okay, so now that we have the tick size of the symbol, we can normalize the price. So price equals normalize double function, and now we just use the math round function here, and we want to divide the price by the tick size, and then we also want to multiply it again by the tick size, and we normalize the price by the number of digits for our symbol, just like this. Okay, this should be fine for this function. Let's compile. Okay, so the last function we want to code is to close the positions. So this is pretty similar to this count open positions function here. So I will just copy this code. We go down and we paste it here. Now we can change the comment to close positions, and also the name, of course, close positions. Okay, for the parameters, we will have one parameter of type integer. This time we don't pass it as a reference. We just need it to specify if we want to close all positions, then this input is 0. If we want to close all buy positions, this is 1. And if we only want to close the sell positions, this variable here will be 2. At least that's how I do it. And now for the body of the function here, we don't need the counter variables here. We need the total variable here. We also need the close, the for loop. Again, we get the ticket, we select the position, that's all the same. We get the magic number, we check if this position has our magic number, and we also get the type of the position. Now here we need to add if our all buy sell is 1, which means we only want to close the buy positions. And here we have a sell position, so we change this to sell. Then we want to continue with the next position. And also for the buy positions down here, if this all buy sell is equal to 2, which means we only want to close all sell positions, and the type is a buy position, we also want to continue with the next position. Okay, and if we don't continue with the next position, we want to close the position. So we can just call the trade object dot, I think, position close. And here we just need to specify the ticket. And the deviation, I will not specify the deviation. I just always want to close the position. Okay, and we also want to check the result of this call here, if our call was successful. So we can use if trade that result red code is not equal to rate red code done. Then we want to print a message for the user. So we can just use a print statement here. Failed to close position. And maybe we also want to print out the ticket number. So string ticket, and maybe also the result. So we can type string and rate result red code here. And there's also a description. We can print out. So this will be trade.red. Can you see? Yeah. Trade.red code description. So maybe we put this in another line here. Here, for example. So we just get some information about the call, and maybe we can see the reason why it failed. And we also want to return here false. Or maybe we want to continue with the other positions. Yeah, so let's delete this again. So we get the print statement that we failed to close one position, but we want to try to close the other positions. Okay, and that's pretty much it for the close positions function here. And now we can compile. We have no errors, perfect. And now we can use these three functions here in our onTick function to open and close positions. Okay, so that's basically the last section we need to code here in the onTick function. So here we just want to open and close positions. And the first step here is to count the open positions. And now we can use our custom function here inside a if statement, count open positions, count by, and count sell. And if this call here fails, we want to return for the onTick function here. And of course, before here we need to specify these two variables. So count by, also count sell. Okay, now we can check if we can open a buy position. Check for buy position, and we just write a if statement. And now we only want to open a buy position if we don't have a buy position open at the moment. So our count by variable here has to be 0. And now also, of course, we wanted to open the buy position if we here enter this oversold region, if we cross the lower level of the RSI. So that's the next condition, basically. So our current buffer value, which is buffer 0, has to be below the, or let's start with the previous value. The previous value has to be above our input 100 minus input RSI level, because here we specified the upper level, and now of course this will give us the lower level value. 100 minus 80, for example, will be 20, and our previous value has to be above this level, and now the current value has to be below. So we have a crossover. So this will be the next condition. Our buffer 0 here has to be below, this time again, 100 minus input RSI level. And I use here greater or equal, so we just make sure we don't miss a crossover. Because, of course, the buffer can be exactly the same value as our level. And we also want to make sure that our open time by variable here is different to the current open time of the candle. So we only open one position for each bar. So symbol, our current period, and shift is also 0 for the current bar. And in this case, we can open a buy position. So we have no buy position open, and we have a crossover, and our open time buy is different to the current open time of the current bar. Okay, so here, first of all, we want to set the open time by to the current open time of the bar now. And next, we want to close all sell positions. If we have this option here true, so we close the sell positions whenever we get a signal for a buy position. So input close signal is true. Then we can use the close positions function here. And we all only want to close the sell positions. So we specify this all by sell variable here with 2. And maybe we also want to return if this fails. So we can write a if statement. If this close position function fails here, we also want to return for the onTick function here. So we don't even open another trade. Okay, now we also need to calculate a stop loss and take profit before we open a position. So we can declare a variable called stop loss, and we can set it depending on our input stop loss. So if the input is 0, for example, then we just want to set this to 0, and else we want to set the stop loss to the current tick dot bit minus, of course, the stop loss has to be below the current price, so minus our input stop loss input here, which is in points. So we need to multiply this by the point value of our symbol. So that's it for the stop loss. Now we also want to calculate the take profit. So we just copy this line, change this to take profit. Our input take profit, of course. If this is 0, we don't want a take profit. We set it to 0. And else we just add to the current bid price our input take profit value here. And we also multiply it by the points. Okay, now we want to normalize the stop loss and take profit price to our tick size of the symbol. So that's why we coded the normalized price function. And now we can just call it normalized price, and we enter the stop loss, for example. If this fails, we want to return, and we do the same for the take profit. We enter the take profit here, and we get the normalized take profit value back because it's passed by reference. And we can also just return if this function here fails. We only need one more line to open a position. So we can write trade dot position open. We specify the symbol, which is our current symbol. Order type buy, we want to buy. And the volume, our int lot size. The price is our current tick dot ask price, because we always buy at the ask price. And yeah, stop loss, our stop loss value, take profit, our take profit value. And for the comment, we can just, let's say, RSI EA. Okay, so this will open the position, the buy position for us. And now we just, let's compile first. And we can see we get a lot of errors here. And it's important when you fix your code that you always fix the top error first. So you scroll up to the first error here, double click, you jump right through the mistake basically. And we can see here we are missing a bracket. So we close this if condition here. Now let's compile again, and we can see everything is fine. And now we just need to copy this for the sell positions. So we change the comment here, check for sell position. And this time, of course, our count sell has to be 0 if we want to open a sell position. The buffer has to be, so let's take a look at the chart. So here the buffer, the previous value has to be below the upper level here, and the current buffer value has to be above. So then we want to enter a sell position. So it has to be below or equal. This time we don't need the 100. Equal to our RSI level, and the buffer 0, which is the current value, has to be above our RSI level. And also open time sell this time here has to be different to the open time of the current bar. And we also change this here, open time buy to open time sell. And here, if we want to close the positions, the buy position on a sell signal, now we just specify here 1. So we close all buy positions. We calculate the stop loss. So input stop loss 0, current tick, this time ask price for stop loss and take profit. And of course, we add the stop loss to the current price for a sell position, and we subtract the take profit for a sell position. And also here, normalized price, this is the same. Trade, position open, symbol, order type, sell. Here, of course, we enter our lot size, current tick. Of course, we always sell at the bid price. We use our stop loss, take profit, RSI EA as a comment. So this should be fine. Now let's compile, and we can test our EA in the strategy tester. Okay, so let's switch to the MetaTrader platform here. Open the strategy tester. We select our EA, a symbol, a period, every tick mode, and we just want to make sure that we start a visual test here. For the inputs, I will just use these inputs for now. We just want to make sure that our EA works like intended. So let's start the test and take a look at a few trades. Let's just wait for the first trade here. A buy trade, 100 take profit, 200 points stop loss. So that's correct. And let's also wait for a sell position. So right here, we open up a sell trade. Of course, if you look back in time now, you don't see a crossover here of the RSI with the upper level here. But at this point in time, the candle was up here and there was a crossover. So that's something you have to keep in mind. We also have the stop loss take profit for the sell position. So yeah, it looks like our EA is working like intended, and we don't open multiple positions in the same direction. Now what I also want to test is this option here to close the trades with a opposite signal. For this, I don't use a stop loss and take profit. And yeah, now we will be always in the market basically. You can speed this up a little bit. Yeah, whenever we close a position, we open the next one in the other direction. Yeah, so that's also looking good. Okay, and another thing you have to keep in mind with the strategy tester always sets these levels here default to 70 and 30, no matter if you change the input here for the level value. So don't get confused if you have like the level set to 90 here in the inputs, and the strategy tester still shows here 70 and 30. That's just something in the strategy tester. Of course, in live mode, you can set these levels, but in the strategy tester, that's something you have to keep in mind. Okay, but now let's take a look at the backtest I showed you in the beginning of the video. So the values for the backtest, also a period of 8. The level, 95. no stop loss, take profit of 50 points, and this close trades by opposite signal to true. I have selected the euro dollar last 10 years, and let's just uncheck this so it runs a little bit faster. And yeah, you can see the backtest looks pretty good. I know you guys like good looking backtests, but that's not something I would trade, of course. The backtest has to be stable and also not over optimized. But I have to say, with the RSI indicator, I'm pretty impressed with the signals. I can show you another backtest because I did a optimization, of course. So if you take a look at the best results here. So this is the result with over 20,000 trades here. I'm pretty impressed by the RSI signals. I will look into this for my own trading, maybe add a filter. But if this video was helpful for you, it would be nice if you just leave a like. If you have a question about automated trading, about coding, you can always write a comment. Write me through my website or via Telegram. Yeah, in the next videos, we will also take a look at a moving average crossover with the price. I will tell you why I don't like to exit my trades with a stop loss. And yeah, a lot of other cool stuff to come here on the channel. So if you don't want to miss that, make sure to subscribe to my channel. And I also want to thank you for nearly 1K subs here on YouTube. I make these videos in my free time, and I'm just happy if these videos are helpful for some of you guys. Okay, so I will see you in one of the next videos. Bye.